Order regular board meeting on December 16th, 2021 at 6:04 p.m. And I have roll call, please.
Mr. Guerin.
Here.
Mr. Gentry.
Here.
Mr. Craddy.
Here.
Mrs. Melendy. Mr. Troy.
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Here.
Mr. Quagliano.
Okay. First item up on the agenda is closed session. So with that, I will make a motion to go into closed session for the reasons outlined on the agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Guerin.
Yes.
Mr. Craddy.
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano. Mrs. Melendy. Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Yes.
Okay, good evening. We're going to try and restart the meeting. Settle down. Help us out here. Okay, we are back, resuming from closed session. So can we have roll call to resume open session?
Mr. Guerin.
Here.
Mr. Craddy.
Here.
Mr. Gentry.
Here.
Mr. Quagliano.
Here.
Mrs. Melendi. Mr. Troy.
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino. Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. There is no action out of closed session, so we'll move on to item 4, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Some students for the pledge.
All right, thank you for allowing Martin to come again to the board meeting in December. We're super excited to share a whole group of exemplary students that have been showing great kindness, great caring, and including others. We'd like to say they're living the Martin way by making a difference and a positive impact to those around them. So I'd like to invite our students to come forward, say their names, the teacher's classroom, and then we'll start the pledge.
Ainsley Berger in Mrs. Rupson's class. Hannah Higgins in Mrs. Havista's class. Blakely Boyd in Mrs. Mugatas' class. Olivia Hunter, Mrs. Grimshaw's class. My name is Devin Vega from Miss Boyd's class. My name is Julia from Mrs. Bennett's class.
My name is Nathan Cheeser from Mrs. Gerke's class.
My name is Jonathan Fossey from Mrs. Calder's class.
My name is Parker Allward from Mrs. Yakomiski's class.
My name is Erica Jackowitz from Miss Bader's class.
Okay, we can all stand.
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You did a great job. Come on, thanks for being here.
Thanks, guys. You know what I mean?
I died anyway.
7 of us behind your feet. Come on over. Come on. Squeeze in just a little closer if you guys can. Perfect.
Great job for coming, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, parents, for bringing them out. We appreciate it very much. Parents, you can have one too. Are you giving away my candy, Mr.?
It's been good. Come on, are you sure?
Thanks for coming. There you go, Dad. There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
Give me candy. Or banana.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is, student recognition, but that's passed for this evening. We had recognized a few at the previous, the meeting before this, so we're gonna move on to item 6, which is, to suspend our regular meeting. So I'll make a motion to suspend the regular meeting at 7:10 to, hold our levy hearing. Can we have a roll call on that?
Second on the motion.
Second, okay, from Mr. Troy, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Troy?
Yes?
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yeah.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes?
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes. Passes, we will, move on to our levy hearing. So I'll call to order the, levy hearing for December 16th at 7:11. Can we have roll call for that?
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Here.
Mrs. Melendi? Mr. Gentry?
Here.
Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Here.
Mr. Troy?
I'm here.
Okay. And to his testimony for the 2021 levy, Mr. Altmeyer.
Well, thank you very much to the Board of Education and to the community and to our property taxpayers that are here today. You know, with the operating property tax revenues of the district, you know, approximating over 65% of the district's revenues, you know, we don't take this process lightly, because what this process we're doing today is the operating tax levy is we're asking for the community's approval, and we're asking for the board's approval to approve the annual increase in property taxes. And I know that's a tough saying, but it is unfortunately how school districts, right, are funded here in Illinois. So it's an annual process that we go through. So last month we presented the preliminary tax levy, and we presented all of the data points, and none of that has changed. So today I will present all of those high-level data points today, but I'm also going to present a bunch of benchmark data and some background information for which I think the community and the board will certainly should be aware of. But I want to start the presentation with this, right, class of 2022. So this is very special to me because, well, 13 years ago, in 2009, I joined the district. And as I was walking through district office, I remember, so it was on my very first day, and I was being introduced to people, and the registration office is right on the other side of this wall here. And I walked in and I saw this sign. And I didn't know what it was because, well, I was new to education, frankly. And it was class of 22. And so they explained to me that, well, that was our current year kindergartners. And that's the year for which they're graduating, for which a lot of our kindergartners take pictures with this sign, hoping to graduate in 2022. So it's very important to me because, well, I have been here now 13 years, and I've got to see a full cycle of students going through the process. And over the last 13 years, oh boy, we have done some amazing, we've done a lot, right? We've done what we've been meant to do, and that's educate students. And when we talk about the property tax levy and the importance of property taxpayers paying and providing those resources to do what we're meant to do, well, it makes this process just a little more important, right? So from elementary, kindergarten, all the way to middle school and high school, we do a lot of different things. And over the years, we've implemented a lot of specialized programs, dual language being one of those, right? We've offered and created life-changing programs, opportunities for our students, including the medical academy. We have an engineering academy. We have a global academy, right? We have personalized pathways now called, well, blended learning. A lot of us are familiar with that. We have Vanguard Vision. We've got so many different things, all supported now by our one-to-one initiative, for which we were one of the very first in the state, K through 12, to roll out. So we've done some amazing things over time. We also use the property taxpayer money for after-school activities, right? Athletics, activities, fine arts. So we use those resources, well, how they're meant to be used to create well-rounded students. So at the end of the day, right, we get to this point. We get to graduation. So this year for me, graduation is going to be a little more meaningful because it's the first cycle for which I get to see some of those kindergartners go through the process of graduation. So I'm looking forward to that time. So when I think about property tax revenue and this process of proving the increase in property taxes, this is what I think about, because it is about this, about nothing else. It's so that we can sustain ourselves and do the things that we are meant to do for our students. So what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about PTEL, that's the Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. Okay, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about our tax rate. We'll talk about historical consumer price index, historical abatements, and I'll define that here shortly. And then we'll talk about the Levy 2021 data point, and then ultimately ask the board for approval. PTEL, Property Tax Extension Limitation Law. This is what we live by, and that's year over year, we can only ask for a certain increase in our property taxes, right? This is the law that drives the fact that, well, we can only ask for the consumer price index or 5%, whichever is lower. But as long as the property tax extension law limitation has been in place, well, we've never hit 5%. It's always been CPI. Next year might be a little different. Next year will be a little different because the CPI for next year is going to be above 5%. And that's another discussion point for which we could talk a little bit about later. Tax rate. Okay, we often hear, boy, District 158 has a very high tax rate. And I get it, when we're all paying property taxes, everybody's got a high tax rate. And unfortunately, here in Illinois, with the way schools are funded, with 70% approximately of your tax bill going to school districts, we all have a high tax rate. But the fact of the matter is, with all neighboring districts around us, we've got one of the lowest tax rates. In fact, if you look at the top of this chart, Crystal Lake 47 and 155, they're combined because that's an elementary and high school district. They have got one of the highest tax rates in the county that is shown here. They have the highest. Whereas we in McHenry County have the lowest tax rate, only to be outdone by Barrington, well, because Barrington is a very, very property wealthy district. Right? They've got a lot of commercial property and a lot of high value homes. So the higher that property value, the lower the rate. Here at District 158, we have very low property value and a very low tax rate. We'll talk about why here shortly. The Consumer Price Index, the Historical Consumer Price Index. So this is what we've been allowed to extend, ask for an increase year over year since 14, levy year 2014. So as you can see, generally every single year, on average, since 2011, we're averaging 1.73%. Right, in 2014, 15, and 16, it was 1.5, 0.8, 0.7 for the last several years, hovering around 2%, with this year being at 1.4%. But this doesn't tell the whole story on what we ask for as an increase, or what we extend as an increase, because there's something called abatements. Based on our reserves, based on how much cash we have on hand, historically, we have done a lot of abatements. We've taken our reserves and we have reduced the tax burden of the community. So that CPI for which we're allowed to increase your taxes, we actually reduced the overall tax burden to the community. And so back in 2011 and 12, you can see we did a $6.9 million worth of total abatements. And that was an effort that over 3 years, we kept the total taxes that we've extended to the community completely flat. For 3 years in a row, in those years, we kept taxes flat. And then over from 2013 to 18, the board had approved long before using capital development grant money to abate $400,000 a year. Now, taking these abatements, these reductions in tax burdens to the community into account, well, this chart represents the amount that we did extend to the community, the increase in the operating tax rate. And as you can see, in 2011 and 12, it was 0%, right? 13, 14, 15, 16, significantly under 1%, with the exception of 13, of course. And then in 17 and 18 and 19, you could see we have kept these increases very low. And we've supported these increases. You might ask yourself, well, we know the school district expenses go up by more than this amount, right? They go up by 3.54, 4.55% every year. Why? Because we have union contracts, we have salaries, we have benefits, and benefits include health insurance. And believe it or not, approximately 10% of the district's overall budget is health insurance for our employees. Right? We have 1,200 full-time employees. So, and health insurance, I think we all know in the economy and in the world, right, is increasing by 5 and 10% per year. So we try to manage all of that. And so we know our expenses are going up significantly more than that. And you might ask yourself the question, well, how are you able to create a balanced budget? Right? And for our district, it's very challenging to create a balanced budget because, well, we're one of the lowest spending districts, and you've probably heard us talk about that, in the community. In fact, we're the second or third lowest spending K through 12 district, unit district, in the Chicagoland area. We spend approximately 20% less than the state average of all school districts in the state. And it's because, well, we don't pull in a lot of taxes. We don't have a lot of commercial property wealth. We do everything we can to save money, right? We like to think, in fact, I think, we are the most operationally efficient district in the state of Illinois, right? We have solar panels outside. 85% of our energy comes from solar. We are probably the most energy efficient district in the state. We have reduced our energy spend from almost $2.4 million to almost $1 million from 2009 forward. So we have done things to keep dollars in the classroom. That's why making sure that we ask the community for a tax increase is so important. But we've done a lot of operational efficiency measures. We've done so many that they're starting to be a little harder to find, right? Because we are already incredibly operationally efficient, and we're pretty effective as well, as you've seen by that slideshow of the different things that we've done for our students. Now I'd like to talk about the levy data points. Right, the equalized assessed value, EAV, is increasing 4.1% from approximately $1.5 billion. Okay, equalized assessed value is going up 4.1% because, well, it's a good thing. Market values of our homes and property are going up. New construction is significantly up from prior year due to residential development. Right, we're building new homes in the community, which is great. And the new construction for the district, what this represents is additional tax dollars. Okay, doesn't impact your tax rate. It's new tax dollars from the new families moving in. And that represents, that $16.5 million of new construction represents approximately $750,000 of additional revenues to the district. That's a very good thing, but unfortunately, it's something that we cannot rely on year after year after year. At some point, right, our development properties will run out. Our cap tax rate, what we talked about our tax rate earlier, is expected to decrease from 4.59 to 4.52. And that's normal. As our market values increase in our homes, the tax rate does come down. At 1.4%, consumer price index, a homeowner with a $200,000 market value will experience approximately a $49 increase in their tax bill with this 1.4% extension. At $300,000, approximately $75. We also increased the levy. We're asking for an increase, and the board is aware of this. We call it ballooning the levy. We increased the request of the levy, and we've increased the request of the total levy by approximately $1 million, 1.5%. And we do that because that $16.5 million that we mentioned, well, that's an estimate that we received from the county on new construction. And if that new construction actually comes in at $25 million, well, then we don't get to collect taxes on that, which is unfortunate, and the school districts would lose revenue dollars. So we increased the levy, not to increase your taxes, because we can only increase your taxes by 1.4%, but we increased the levy so that we don't leave dollars on the table, so to speak, with new construction. And that's a standard kind of operating procedure, well, for every taxing district. Ultimately, the total levy request approximates $71.57 million. I want to end with this, right? With this levy, we're asking for each board member's approval. We're asking for the community approval at 1.4%. And we're asking for that approval, well, because we need those dollars to do what we need to do today, but we need to ensure that we're doing the same thing for this group of students, right? This is our current kindergartners graduating in 2035. I hope to be around, or not.
We hope you're.
But that's why this is so important. It's not just about today, it's about tomorrow. It's about the next 13 years, so that we can continue to do the things that we've been doing, right? And knowing the challenges that we have internally, operationally, right? With funding, state funding, right? There's no guarantee we'll get state funding. So we're simply asking for a 1.4% increase in the property tax levy. So with that, I will formalize the recommendation, noting administration is recommending that the Board of Education approve the 2021 levy as presented at $71,573,457, which includes the 1.4% CPI increase in accordance with PTEL, as well as the additional ballooned amount of 1.5% to cover the potential for new additional construction. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Altmeyer? Again, we've gone over this multiple times throughout the last several months. As a recap and a formalization of all of that. So if anybody has any further questions concerning levy specifically? Again, well, we'll just stick to this levy because that's what that's about. We do have some things to discuss down the road as it relates to future levies and how CPI is going to be working out, and how some of our debt restructuring will be working out. But as it pertains to this specific levy, everything is pretty much straightforward. CPI was relatively tame. There's not massive increases to this. Nobody has any, you do?
Yeah, I do this all the time with intent, is to make sure that it's communicated to the community that what we request, the analogy that I use is an apple pie. We do not parse it out. We do not divide the slices up to the community on how is property assessed. We do not have any say in that. What we're doing is requesting the lump sum. And it's not our responsibility or duty in order to divide that out to the property owners. So it's just a clarification of what the process is overall, so that people are aware of that. Because that often gets raised on social media, raised in media, all over the place. And I just want to head off that any preconception that the school district has an involvement in deciding out how much of an increase individual property owners see against what is expected on average.
Correct. And I made the statement that a homeowner with a $300,000 market value could expect approximately, right, a $75 increase to their property tax bill for the school district. So that's first and foremost, right? We represent 60 to 70% of your tax bill. So that's just that portion of your tax bill. But what also comes into play is, right, the assessed values of your neighbors and the community, and McHenry County versus Kane County. We're a dual county district. And so shifting assessed values will play a part in that. So unfortunately, we're not part of that, right? We ask for the request and it goes to the assessor's office and the treasurer's office, who create the bills based on the assessed values of the community. And so if there are shifting assessed values or apportionment values, and that's the Kane County versus McHenry County portion, that will impact those numbers. So that is also important to know. So in other words, if you get your tax bill and you're like, oh my gosh, it went up by 10%, and sometimes, unfortunately, it does. Well, that's not necessarily the school district, because, you know, the school district, as an example, is only increasing, right, their request by 1.4%. Right? So that would be a result of shifting homeowner values. Probably an extreme example, but it does happen on occasion, more with commercial properties than not. So I hope that helps.
Nope, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Altmaier, the board? Okay, if not, so this is a separate meeting, so it has its own separate public comment. So I do have one public comment listed, and it's Diane Bittman. If you'd like to come and speak. Same rules as the regular public comments, 3 minutes.
Okay, I can take this off. All right. Good evening, board and community. My name is Diane Bittman, and I'm here tonight speaking actually on behalf of my husband who couldn't make it tonight. I am also a member of the parent union. Tonight, this district will be voting on the levy. This is one of the most important votes the board makes each year. The levy is how much money does this community need to fund a great public education. This great public education here in Huntley is why our family moved here. Before you vote tonight, I hope there is a vigorous debate about this levy, giving it the highest of priority. There are a few questions which I would love to be asked, or to ask. Number one, do you believe the amount of money the district needs is directly proportional to the number of students enrolled in the district? The enrollment of this district peaked in 2017 and 18. There were 9,611 students. This year, there are 8,511 students. This is an 11% drop in the enrollment. Number two, adjusting for inflation using CPI, same as the levy, and for enrollment changes. To get the same real dollars spent locally per student from 2017-18 to this year, how much would our total levy increase? The answer, it would actually decrease. Yes, our taxes should have come down, even adjusting for the inflation. Yet the levy you are proposing is actually 12% higher in 2017 dollars and 17% higher in 2021 dollars. Number three, wait, local funding isn't our only source of funding. Has the state and the federal government been stingy? How much did that change over the same period? From 2017-18 until now, District 158 received more state and federal funding, just about 10% more, or over $3 million, even though our enrollment dropped by 10%. Number four, next question. We all want a better education for the kids. We must be spending this extra money with enrollment coming down and our intake going up on more classroom teachers. We can all likely agree that this might be a good idea to have these frontline workers directly involved hands-on with the kids. How many more classroom teachers do we have compared to then? The answer is the number of K through 8 classroom teachers has decreased by 10%. We were unable to get the high school numbers. That was a little bit trickier to get, so that's just based on K through 8.
High school is up.
Let me repeat, local funding is up by 17%, state and federal is up by 10%, and classroom teachers are decreased by 10%. The district budget doesn't even call out enrollment, which would be the most critical assumption in creating a budget. Looking at the class enrollment, it is clear enrollment will continue to drop, yet the forecast is for more and more growth. So the final question is, where is the money going? And this is something we'd love to hear a debate about. I urge you to vote no on the levy until we focus the spending of the district more directly on educating the kids and supporting the teachers with more teachers with smaller class sizes, or however we can get more of a hands-on with them. I'm going off my husband with that one.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. If no more public comment concerning the levy, make a motion to adjourn the levy hearing at 7:34. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Troy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Levy hearing is adjourned. Move back to our regular meeting. So we'll resume the regular meeting at 7:34. Can we have roll call?
Mr. Karen,
Here.
Mr. Craddy,
Here.
Mr. Gentry,
Here.
Mr. Quagliano,
Here.
Mrs. Melendi, Mr. Troy,
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino.
Here.
Okay. Item 9 is academic spotlight. Language. Who's doing?
Good evening. Today we are celebrating our District 158 Multilingual program, our bilingual students, our teachers, and our families. Mrs. Ponce Jordan, our Director of Multilingual Services, will present a video that we created to showcase our students' accomplishments and to show how busy they have been learning two languages.
Thank you. Hola, buenas noches. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to highlight our multilingual program this evening. Our department has the privilege of working with language learners by providing services through ESL, dual language, and bilingual services for both Spanish and Polish. We are very proud of all of our dedicated staff that have made all of these services possible. Tonight, we're going to be highlighting our dual language program. Our dual language program is now in its 4th year of implementation. It's amazing how much our program has grown and all that we have accomplished even throughout the pandemic. Our dual language program here in Huntley is comprised of a two-way immersion model. It's made up of 50% native Spanish speakers and 50% native English speakers or other languages. Our program goals are bilingualism, biliteracy, grade level academic achievement, and cross-cultural competence. We know that our dual staff students are dual staff, and they're the backbone of our program. So we invite you to go ahead and take a look at our video and see what our staff and students have to say about the dual language program so far.
Hi, my name's Emily Hewitt, and I am the multilingual instructional coach for the multilingual program here at Huntley School District 158. Our multilingual program here at Huntley School District 158 includes our dual language program as well as our ESL program, pre-K all the way through high school. Today's focus is really going to spotlight our dual language program. Having a strong curriculum is important to our program. Partnering with our teachers and writing our units has really helped us to strengthen it. We have such amazing dual language teachers here at Huntley District 158. These teachers use best practice strategies such as total physical response, dictado, teaching the content through 2 languages. Language scarves, blue is English, green is Spanish, and using authentic Spanish text. They're so dedicated and work so hard every day.
I would have to say that my favorite part about teaching dual language is that not only do I get to teach in 2 different languages, but I also get to promote cultural awareness and appreciation with my students.
Mi parte favorita de enseñar 2 idiomas es el poder ver cómo los niños integran sus conocimientos y experiencias para la adquisición del nuevo lenguaje. Me encanta ver cómo se esfuerzan y los resultados de esos esfuerzos son muy grandiosos. Oírlos comunicarse en español me llena de satisfacción y de mucho orgullo.
I love being a dual bilingual teacher. I love being able to see students grow in English and in Spanish, and not only that, but they're learning math, they're learning science, they're learning social science, and they're learning in both languages. And in the world that's changing, we are able to do this and be successful and create students that are going to be all the more prepared for an ever-changing world.
My favorite thing about teaching in a dual language setting is that I am able to teach my first language. My first language is Spanish. Entonces yo les puedo enseñar mi idioma a ellos. También les puedo enseñar a que tengan aprecio por su idioma que hablan en español en su casa. Tengo varios alumnos que hablan 3 idiomas. One of them does speak Vietnamese, English, and Spanish at home. So I do love teaching him to love those 3 languages.
Every year I have a different teacher that you get to hear where they were born and how they grew to loving teaching and where they learned Spanish, and they all have a different way of teaching and how they can have tricks on how to remember words, and they have all these ways. Like, I got introduced to dictado in 2nd grade, and that's always been one of my favorite things. And it's really fun to be able to speak 2 languages with my family.
Mi parte favorita de estar en clase dual es puedes hablar español con tus amigos y puedes practicar y aprender más español. Parte favorita de estar en una clase dual es hablar diferentes lenguas y aprender y poder aprender mucho español y inglés.
Muy bien.
Well, you get to learn 2 languages, and whenever there's a Spanish test, you know what to do because you were in 2 language.
It's so exciting to see our emerging bilinguals becoming bilingual, biliterate, and multicultural. All of our success is made possible through the help of families, students, teachers, administrators, and the board. Thank you so very much. Gracias a todos.
Hola, soy Joana Poncio Jordan, la directora de los servicios multilingües aquí en Huntley. Nuestros estudiantes, maestros y familias son invencibles. Estamos tan orgullosos de ellos.
Thank you. Thank you for taking a little glimpse into what's taking place with our students and staff. It's really incredible to see how our students are flourishing in the program and how they're moving through the program. So many things are possible when we actually invest in our students. So that's our theme for tonight. When you plant your dreams, you can watch them grow. It actually sounds better in Spanish. Siembra tus sueños y míralos crecer. Thank you, teachers, staff, administrators, and board for all of your support within our dual language program. And now we're going to finish. We're going to invite Ms. Majewski's class up and her students, and they're going to show us one of the strategies that we utilize in our classroom, TPR, Total Physical Response. It's a method of teaching language or vocabulary concepts that uses physical movements to react to verbal input. They're going to show you how they're going to learn the language using the TPR for an upcoming unit on plants.
Hello?
Don't be shy.
Come on. You gotta show them. Ellos no saben español. Aquí, aquí. Y Brenda, y Brenda. ¿Ustedes pueden ver? ¿Lo pueden ver? ¿Sí? 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 ¿Ready?
La planta. Las plantas necesitan el sol, el agua, el aire y nutrientes de la tierra para sobrevivir. Las partes de la planta, el tallo lleva el agua y nutrientes a la planta. Las raíces absorben agua y nutrientes de la tierra. Las hojas usan el sol, el agua y el aire para producir comida. Las flores producen las semillas de la planta. Las plantas tienen un ciclo de vida. Primero empieza como una semilla. Después crece a un brote. Luego crece a una plántula. da adulta y crecen flores. Las flores producen semillas y un nuevo ciclo comienza. Chicos, ¿están listos? Sí. Ok, muéstrame el sol. Muéstrame el sol. El agua. Las flores. Ay, bueno, los nutrientes de la tierra. El aire. Un brote. Ay, brote. El tallo. El sol. El agua. El aire. Nutrientes de la tierra. Sol. Fantástico, chicos, gracias, muchas gracias.
Oh, sure. Hold on.
Great work. Well done. Good job. You guys are fantastic. Good job.
You guys did great pronunciation.
Vamos a tomar foto. 1, 2 y 3. Yay. Queso. Bueno. Ay, bueno.
Great job. Thank you all for coming. Well done. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Adiós. Hasta mañana. Hasta mañana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Impressive.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
So, as somebody who's bilateral myself, that's not the way I learned it.
You want to jump up and down?
No, I didn't jump up and down. It was not based on motions that's tied to language. And I find that fascinating in the way that is taught, is how, I don't know how to, I'll ask because I'm old, but how new is that technique?
Well, dual language has been around for 20, 15 years. These techniques are like recent, I will say, because we were used to teach or to learn like foreign language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like silos in English and Spanish, and that's not the way that our students learn. We integrate the concept and with the literacy, and the language with the literacy, and literacy with language. So that's a way how they truly become bilingual and biliterate. That's one of the strategies. We have many others, but it's difficult because these are first grade students. So they started in kindergarten, and it's been like a year and a half, and the level of their Spanish is pretty high.
It seems like it.
It seems exceptional.
Yeah, it seems very, very good. I don't speak Spanish necessarily, but just watching them react, and create the motions to go with the vocabulary, and how quickly they were able to do that there at the end, it was fascinating to me.
And this technique integrates the language, but also the motion and the visual. So it's easier for us, English learners or Spanish learners,
Mm-hmm.
one way or the other, to acquire the language.
So at what point do they start to dig into the language, like conjugating verbs and sentence structure, or is this technique going to help build that literacy, the structure of that kind of literacy?
So this technique is basically basically to a concept attainment, to attain the concept.
Okay.
They start
Yeah, there was,
when we do like foreign language, they start doing that since kindergarten.
yeah.
So it's embedded in the units. We use our interdisciplinary units. So they started since kindergarten. So in kindergarten, we have 80% of Spanish, 80% of the day is in Spanish, and 20% is in English. And they do both. They do both sets of stutters, so they start since the beginning. They start like using verbs or using high frequency words. They are by first grade reading like in both languages at the level of a first grader.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything further on that? Okay. Thank you for the presentation. Item 10 is public comment. I have 5 of them. Start with Carrie Cross.
That's gonna keep moving. Hello again. I am Carrie Cross. I'm also a member of the District 158 Parent Union. In the last few weeks, there have been posts about the kids on the floor of the buses on social media community pages, and despite us trying to draw attention to this months ago, it went without resolution. It doesn't matter the why this is happening, i.e. bus shortages or driver shortages. What matters is what are you going to do to fix it to keep our kids safe? We keep hearing you're taking steps and precautions to keep everyone safe, but clearly this is not true. Bus safety laws actually exist, and you're actually breaking those laws. Who is to be held accountable with inclement weather approaching if, God forbid, there is an accident and kids are injured or worse? That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. My kid, thank God, doesn't ride the bus, but I pray that all of the kids that do ride them make it to and from school safely each and every day. I'm happy to see Rocio present tonight for the multilingual presentation. We missed you during Down Syndrome Awareness Month and last month on Veterans Day when Marlowe's Special Education class recited the pledge. I'm curious, you guys were talking about the movement to learn letters. Why don't we use those body motion techniques in special education? Because my daughter's 11 and has been in this district since 3rd grade, and I've never seen that. If any group would benefit from it, it would be special education. For our last meeting of 2021, and after speaking at every single board meeting that I could over the last 20 months, and not much changing, what is really on my mind is, how many of you hold positions on other boards or multiple other boards in Huntley? I find it odd that you all speak about diversity and we can't even get diversity of thought here or across the board throughout our town. How many of you have kids that attend D158 still? Other than wanting your hands in all of the cookie jars and the boards across to ensure that you can pat each other on the backs, you have no vested interest in our children. I think the bold move would be to step down and resign from your positions, allow true diversity of thought, and allow current parents to hold these positions to ensure that the board is actually putting the children first. Or are you that pompous that you believe you know better than us parents for what our own children need? Or are you that privileged to believe that no one can know more than you? This district will not be your career stepping stones to your political goals. In fact, at this point, all of you should see this period of time and position it as a blemish on your resumes.
Andy Liggett.
Hey guys, I've never gotten up here before, so
Take your time.
we'll see. Don't have an official, just got
settled in.
words. My name is Andy Liggett. I have 3 kids, one that just graduated. And we're very appreciative. There was an in-person graduation. That was great. Thank you for making that happen. I have one that's a sophomore and one that's in 8th grade. And I just come to speak to, I guess, kind of social media and it just some things I'm seeing, and it gets nasty, and we're kind of looking toward the next graduation. And I guess I'm kind of giving my small apologetic toward it, not just to you, but anybody else listening out there, that I'm just seeing such hatred, you know, on the social media toward the idea that we may do a graduation at a church, okay? And this is a church that I've been very familiar with for a very long time. And people got some nasty stuff to say. Usually, first off, that a senior pastor years ago, we had to, you know, let him go. He did some inappropriate comments, nothing huge, but anything, he, you know, understood in the end that he's a man and he failed, and the entire elder board was let go to resolve this. Yet people just got this hatred online, and they don't want our kids to be there, despite the fact that it's been fine for possibly decades. Hoffman Estates, Barrington, they do it there. They're not nasty about it. Our former senior pastor, unbeknownst to pretty much anybody that doesn't know something about it, formed a small group, Bible group, with gay men because he wanted to understand them, to include them, so they didn't feel outside of the church. But, you know, we're seeing online that obviously they're saying, hey, the church don't like these people. That's false. Church is supposed to love everybody, so don't have these preconceived notions. They would speak from their stage about racial inequality before that was the thing to do. You know, recently it's always been wrong, and they were after it long before it was the hot topic in the news. Yet people just look at the church and the fact that we might have a graduation there, and they may know a person. You know, I hear this all the time. You know, I know X that they said this, and it may have been wrong. There are wrong people everywhere, and they attend this church, so the whole church is wrong. You know, that's like saying, hey, this kid got caught shoplifting, and he goes to Huntley, so all your kids are thieves. No, you can't, don't. These people are stereotyping and prejudicing against people while saying that they are not that. You can do what you want for where you do the graduation, but I'm just tired of hearing these people. You know, it's a very nice venue. It does not feel like a church when you go in there. It's very professional. It feels like a college. They don't push you. There's no crosses up anywhere. They just want you to have a relationship with a higher power that may help you one day. They're not going to push it on you.
Andy, if you could wrap it up with a 3-minute limit. So
certainly. And they, you know, they do have some, you know, catchphrases that are basically just love everybody. And, you know, if the place just loves everybody, why would we knock it? And why would we get on social media and just be so nasty? And, you know, so I hope that, you know, just don't listen to so many naysayers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to come tonight. Dr. Paula Getson.
I brought copies of my remarks. I believe you the secretary. You're welcome. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the statement I sent to you earlier this week, and I'm grateful for the responses I have received. As a follow-up, I would like to make a few points. My main concern is that our school district should be consistent in the message it is sending to our students and the community at large. If the school district wants to promote an inclusive, safe, and welcoming environment for all students,
then we must carefully consider all decisions the board makes in light of that commitment. If we are teaching our children to think critically, they will not be fooled by the board's decisions that are inconsistent with our stated values. Where we spend the school district's taxpayer dollars is a reflection of our values. It is not enough to say that other school districts have used Willow Creek graduation ceremonies. Other school districts are free to make their own decisions based on their values. I am sure that if one of our students misbehaved at school and used the excuse that other kids were doing it too, that would not be very persuasive. We must be true to all our values, our own values. I'm sure that Willow Creek has a very fine facility that in other respects is suitable for the graduation ceremony, but Willow Creek stands for intolerance towards the LGBTQ plus community, and we have to decide to make a stand on this. On behalf of McHenry County National Organization for Women, I urge you to vote no on the contract with Willow Creek Church. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Next speaker will be Lisa Urbanites.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Lisa Arvanitis, and I am the LGBTQIA Committee Chair for the McHenry County chapter of the National Organization for Women. This past week, this board was contacted by our chapter president, Dr. Paula Jensen. You also heard from Tony Weaver, McHenry chapter leader of PFLAG, and William Zangroni, organizer of McHenry County Freethinkers and Humanists. I'm guessing you have heard from residents, alumni, and current students as well. Our collective concern is that Willow Creek discriminates against the LGBT community. Therefore, it is the absolute wrong location for a Huntley High School graduation ceremony. At the December 2nd school board meeting, Dr. Rose said that when he toured Willow Creek Church, he had concerns about religious insignia. He had his eye out for it and found none. It is good to know that care was taken on this front. It makes sense there would be little to find as Willow Creek is a non-denominational evangelical megachurch. While religious insignia may not be apparent inside the facility, there is an undeniable message which simply cannot be ignored. It can be found in the paragraph on page 10 of their updated 2020 publication called The Elder Statements of Willow Creek Community Church, which is available online. I learned this week that many people are unaware of the document. As is the case, I will read the problematic portion for you, edited just a short bit as there are children in the room. It is important to distinguish between sinful tendencies and sinful practice. One may be inclined to theft or violence or addiction, but the more important question is whether one acts on those inclinations. The same is true of sexual morality. What we do with the tendencies in our hearts defines us morally. To have same-sex attraction is quite different from seeking same-sex partners and acting out. In all areas of our life, we are called to choose either God's perfect desires for us or follow our own easily misled desires. By God's strength and grace, our church has members and attenders who experience same-sex attraction yet are committed to celibacy. At Willow, we are committed to loving, supporting, and coming alongside anyone struggling to choose God's countercultural stance of purity. Now, I will unpack this for you. Criminal and harmful behaviors, such as theft, violence, and addiction, have been equated to having same-sex partnerships. Willow Creek solidly and admirably stands by its members who accept the condition of celibacy as the only moral choice. Members of Willow Creek have every right to their beliefs. This is not the problem. allow me to make a comparison that is a bit better than engaging in crimes and harmful behavior versus being in a same-sex relationship. Suggesting that LGBTQ students partake in graduation ceremonies at a facility where discrimination is accepted is akin to suggesting that Black students in the South attend graduation ceremonies at a plantation. Just because the pineapple is stored behind a closed door does not change the air in the room. Now that you know, I hope you will not enter into the contract with Willow Creek. Thank you for your time and happy holidays.
Thank you. Okay, and our last public commentator is Kathleen Troutman.
Slide this down for a second, and I know you guys have more important things to do this evening. But I know today in our world, things are crazy and busy, and everybody has different things that they are looking for as we come to a close at the end of the year. But I really think, as far as public comment, it's important to at least take a minute, and apology to my back to anybody in the audience, to share happy holiday greetings to everyone here at the administration, to our school board, to our families. Sometimes in the world, things go too quick and things are too crazy, but it doesn't hurt to take a moment to say thank you for what you guys do, and thank you, and wishing everybody a happy and healthy new year. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathleen, for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. All right, on to the agenda, on to revisions and adoptions of the agenda. So Bart is not here, so he doesn't have a report. Victor. Altmeyer, anything further from you? There. Del Castillo. Brindle. Dr. Budzinski. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda following revisions. We will remove item 12, item 13, item 14, item 15, item 16, item 17, and item 18. Second.
I'll second.
Second. Troy. We have a roll call to adopt the agenda.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it for Leslie.
Which is fine.
Sorry.
I got you down.
Okay.
Okay, so now we're on to item 19, community relations. We have our Freedom of Information Act request. Anybody have any questions, discussions on that? Okay, if not, move to item 20, which is Superintendent's report.
All right, my remarks this evening will be rather brief, actually. An update of a webinar that I was invited to attend with IDPH and Dr. Ezike on Friday of last week. All Illinois superintendents were invited to attend this webinar hosted by IDPH, Dr. Ezike, Dr. Carmen Ayala, the state superintendent, and Deputy Governor of Education, Martin Torres. During this webinar, they discussed the mask mandate and student quarantine and the impact they were having on schools. Most importantly, the quarantines of close contacts. Dr. Ezike shared that across the state, approximately 2% of close contacts who were quarantined converted to being positive cases of COVID. Because of this low percentage, Dr. Ezike shared with us that she has recommended to the governor that it is time to move away from the widespread quarantining of close contacts and just quarantine those who test positive or are symptomatic. A welcome recommendation from schools, as we obviously want all our students with us daily, yet we still recognize it is a complicated feat to manage this pandemic. She then clearly pointed out that this is the governor's decision, and her sharing this was not an indication that that decision was imminent, but she wanted to share with us that she had made that recommendation, for which we all appreciate. So you must await the governor's official action to change that aspect of how we're managing the pandemic. Hopefully that happens sooner rather than later. That would be a welcome Friday at 5 email versus the typical Friday at 5 p.m. emails that we've received. As for the statewide mask mandate, Dr. Ezike shared that there is no timetable for that to be lifted, and his rates are as high as they are currently, which they are higher than we have seen in quite some time. She did not expect that to be lifted in the near future, but did share the key metric that they're paying attention to, which I think is important for us to be aware of, is the number of ICU beds that are available across the state. That indicator is important, she said, because it represents the hospital's ability to respond to a health crisis in the community. If COVID patients are taking up the vast majority of those beds, someone with another illness would not have a bed available to them. So, my purpose for sharing that just for clarity of some of the things that we've been asking for metrics that they're paying attention to, so that we can better explain to our communities what they might be able to pay attention to. And so I'm happy to hear that they not only share that, but then what seems to be positive progress in terms of probably our biggest challenge, which is quarantining students, which is something that we obviously don't love to do, but is necessary given the current environment. That is all I have this evening.
Press you for a second. Okay. You recently attended a conference that you spoke at. Can you just speak a little bit to that?
Sure. I attended a National Superintendent's Forum and presented on our personalized pathways, and the personalized pathways being how we approach traditional education in our high school, the concept of blended education, what our competency-based education looks like in terms of Vanguard vision, and then something that our students will have the opportunity to register for in the high school next year, which is a small number of online courses. And the beauty of what is happening is students in an a la carte format have a greater voice and choice over what their high school experience looks like. And so at that national conference, I was invited to come speak on that topic and had some very positive feedback. And it was really nice to talk about educational innovation instead of just COVID response. Yeah, it was a good experience. Thank you.
Hearing that. All right, on item 21, President's report. Nothing major to report other than my just sincere wishes that everyone have a very safe holiday these next couple weeks. Really, wish for everyone to enjoy the time they're going to spend with their families. Take the time to appreciate the time we have with each other. Again, just focus on, being a little bit more positive out there about life and things. There's a lot to be thankful for. And people to focus more on what they can positively do instead of what all the negativity that tends to circle around various things, various sides picking on each other. And everybody should to move on in life a bit and work together to try and make things better for all. So, holiday wish for all. On to item 22, which is legislative committee. Mr. Craddy, I don't know if you have any specific updates. I do not. Yeah, sorry about that. No, it's all right. I should have asked. We're on to item 23, which is consent agenda. I'm aware that we do want to remove item 23.12, which is the graduation event location agreement. We'll move that off consent. Are there any other items to move off the consent agenda? Okay, if not, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 23.1.2. Can I get a second? Second. Mr. Aaron with the second. Can we have roll call on the consent agenda?
Mrs. Melendi, Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano.
Yes. '24, which are our action items. The graduation will move to become 24.4, the last item on our action items. Now 24.1 is our supplemental purchase orders and accounts payable. Want to have any discussion on that item? Not. I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental purchase orders, supplemental accounts payables as listed in the agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gentry. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi? Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Item 24.2 is a bus driver contracting memorandum of understanding. ESPA, Dr. Zier.
And this is just an update to a memorandum of understanding that we had with HESPA last year that would allow us to contract bus drivers to the end of this school year. So this is something we agreed to, like I said, last school year. We're bringing it about again in case we would need to do this. We are finding that contracting bus drivers, they are experiencing the same issues we are in terms of recruiting bus drivers, but this would allow us to do so with this memorandum of understanding.
Anyone have any questions concerning the memorandum of understanding? Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the bus driver memorandum of understanding as stated in the agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gentry. Roll call.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi? Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes. Okay, item 24.3, our levy property tax extension. So we had a public comment concerning a couple of questions. We should address those questions. They're legitimate questions. They're good questions. True statement, enrollment has declined, probably 700-800 over the last 4 or 5 years from when it apexed. However, enrollment has increased significantly in the high school. So the concentration, I know, you know, I had numbers for the grade school teachers. That is true. They have declined. High school teachers have increased significantly. I would not know off the top of my head. I don't know if anybody has any. It's pretty significant. So I think our overall teacher count, I don't. Dr. Zier, if you were to talk off the cuff, I mean, our overall teacher count.
Yeah,
probably,
certified staff, 705.
it hasn't. That's still fairly substantial. So why are our costs rising when our enrollment? Shouldn't our cost be directly proportional to our students? So that was one of the questions posed, okay? And our costs are increasing. I mean, what I can tell you from my specific knowledge, and as I'm not in these numbers every day, is our employment contracts have grown fairly significantly over the last 2 contracts we've negotiated. Those increases have been well over 4%. This most recent one, I believe, was closer to 4.75% on the wage compensation line item. The 2 contracts ago, the health insurance benefits increased significantly. The reason for that is as we have stated, we are and were 5 years ago, I mean, even lower in the lowest spending category than we were. And our employment units absolutely realized they were not compensated anywhere close to what other area districts were being compensated at, and they were accurate, and we negotiated to get them in that realm. So I can tell you from personal experience, having negotiated several of those contracts, that yes, our compensation costs have increased probably disproportionately in regards to that, but that's in response to trying to get our teachers at a more competitive compensation level, because they were significantly below compensation levels going back 5-7 years ago. So that's an item I can address specifically. I don't know, Altmaier, if you have anything that you'd want to state further on that.
No, I would definitely agree with that. And looking back over the last several years, and, including this last year and a half, 2 years with COVID, we have added a lot of positions recently. Last year, we had declining enrollment last year, but we knew going into this year that we added several positions, well, to address that learning loss. And I know we don't like to use that word, that's opportunity. But, every district, right, we're all experiencing social emotional learning, so we hired extra social workers. We have hired additional headcount to meet the needs of our students. And when I look at the overall costs of the district, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we are measured, statewide from an adequacy-based, lens. And from an adequacy-based lens, we're at 68% of adequacy. And what that means is that the state has determined, based on the needs of the district, based on our population of our students, based on the region for which we are only funded at a 68% level. In other words, we are 32% underfunded. So the state will tell you that. The other thing I will tell you is we talk about, and I said it during my Levy presentation, is we cannot lose sight of the fact that, we don't have a lot of money. So yes, we are operationally efficient, but we still are 20% we spend, right, we're one of the lowest spending districts around. So we're talking about our spending increasing, but continue, you have to remember, when you're the lowest spending district around, we do have to spend more at times to provide for our students who have needs. And that's what we're trying to do. So if dollars are coming in,
Part of this
we're
has been
still
addressed.
20% below the state average on spend.
Part of it's been addressed through, class sizes have lessened.
I would say that as well.
That was one of the points I was going to make. Our elementary class sizes are in the ranges of kindergarten, first grade, second grade, in the teens or 20.
Right.
As an average across the board. I think our largest class size is 25 in an elementary classroom across the district, which is fantastic, considering where we were 4 or 5 years ago.
Right, correct.
And so while we're graduating 750 students and bringing in approximately 500 elementary students, we've taken the approach of looking at when a teacher leaves the district or evaluating that position, and we have been replacing them, which has allowed us to make that class size as low as it is. And we've done that because of COVID, and to ensure or maximize our spacing in the classrooms. But that's something that, as long as it's affordable, is desirable. Our class sizes are excellent right now.
Yeah, so it's, and beyond that, part of why there's a balloon to this levy is to make sure we capture each dollar. Under PTEL, if you don't get the dollars you were formulaically supposed to get, if you leave those dollars on the table, you can't ratchet up your levy to go recapture those dollars. That is not allowed under PTEL. And each seating levy is predicated on what the prior year levy was. So if you under-levied that levy, you don't have, you're governed by maximum increases. You can never recapture those dollars. Okay, so part of this is governed by long-term planning, working on projections that we work in, and again, some of the projections you've had more recently have not been as favorable as what they were 4 or 5 years ago. The gap is closing on revenue growth versus operational expense growth. And so we're mindful of it. We're cognizant of it. We work hard to mitigate the tax burden on the community is the bond part of the levy, which you don't generally, that's not governed by PTEL. That's governed, there is no tax cap on your bond repayment. Your bond repayment is whatever your debt schedule we've had to, I mean, based on how our debt was scheduled, these schools were built 20 years ago and the bonds were issued, there was a scheduling and assumptions of growth in this district that never materialized. And so debt repayment would have been a significantly higher burden had not we intervened over these last 7 to 10 years, mitigated it, and in some cases we've actually brought it down, and we use that to help control the increases that our community sees. So we're extremely mindful of the impact that our property taxes have on our community, so much so that many of you who've not only been here the last 4 or 5 years or only started paying to the district recently. I mean, we were involved in writing property tax laws back 15, 16 years ago that affected this. Okay, we've been on top of this for a long time. We understand this. We understand it's impactful to the community as far as dollars. We respect the fact that it's a lot of hard-earned money that goes to our schools, but we feel we provide a return on that investment. And I think you can see it in the variety and multitude of selections you have, especially when you get to the high school level. I don't think you'll find another high school in this state, and I would challenge anyone in this room to find me another high school in the state that provides all the programs and the quality of programs that at the high school level that we provide. Okay, for a community of this size, for the amount of resources that we have. You have all those North Shore schools, you have schools like Barrington. They have very nice programs. They don't have the multitude and the depth of programs that this school district has that's being provided at the tax rate level that we're delivering this at. So that's how I would respond to some of that. And again, there's no disrespect. It was an excellent public comment question provided, and I appreciate the fact that you brought that to the fore. So if anybody else has any comments related to that.
Yeah, I guess my perspective on this is, I think we have proven to create additional efficiencies to allow for investments back into classrooms, investments back in programs, and that return on investment is there. And I just think it's a competitive world out there. I mean, I drive very far east every day, and as I go, the resources available to all the students along the way goes progressively up. And I will probably not live to see the day where there's any parity at all on school funding not being governed by zip code or where you live. So when I think about, a 1.4% increase relative to the competition that those kids are going to be competing for college admissions with your kids, competing for jobs down the road, we're statistically behind from an adequacy standpoint. We make good investments, we're efficient, and we can display that. I'm not saying 1.4% is going to close that gap. I don't think that gap's ever going to be closed. All I'm saying is I don't want to let that gap grow, that resource gap grow, as long as we can be held accountable for spending efficiently and getting return on that spend, and maybe not closing the resource gap, but closing and exceeding the achievement gap. So that's why I would be for it.
Mr. Altmeyer, so one of the comments, or part of the public comment, also alluded to federal funding. Federal funding has very specific guidelines that surround that. So it's not like that. I don't believe that we receive a great deal of money federal government-wise to address some of those guidelines, criteria that surround those kinds of monies. From a budget standpoint, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, how much federal money do we get percentage-wise, I guess, versus the rest of our budget?
It's mostly meal money. As it's mostly meal money from the federal government. We have very little Title I.
Yeah, that's,
So,
Correct, yeah. The majority of our federal funding is National School Lunch, which obviously this past year has increased significantly because of the pandemic and the National School Lunch Program, right? Allowing for all students to have lunches. Medicaid, as well as, you know, a big portion, $1 million plus 1.3 or so million comes from the IDEA grant, special education grant, and title funding. But the title funding that we do receive is woefully low versus a lot of our neighboring districts.
right.
right, now the difference is, I don't want to forget, we did get additional money related to it.
That's right. Yeah.
No, that's,
But that is kind
one
of
time,
directly
those are
tied to
one
what
time.
we receive in title funding. So our title funding versus all of our neighboring districts is very, very low because it's based on, well, it's based on poverty, and poverty is not necessarily free and reduced income. Poverty is poverty, and it's census data and it's IRS data, and it's very different what is recorded at the federal level for our district versus every district around us. So what we receive is a fraction of what a lot of our neighboring districts are receiving in title money, and then as a result, ESSER funding.
Yeah, I knew about the ESSER ones, and to me, the ESSER is kind of the exception because that's not standard. The title money is something that happens every year, comes and it goes. So yes, to me, the ESSER is the exception to the conversation overall. But, yeah, I wanted to set that part of the comment, or address that part of the comment as well, knowing that how we match up to, like you said, the neighboring districts in terms of those kinds of federal dollars is significantly different. And so it's just, it doesn't count, or not count, but it's all set. It's just different. It's not very voluminous.
Earmark for specific. As is the predominantly most of the state money that comes other than general state aid. So general state aid is more the you know, general funding we're using operationally. All the other state fundings are specific earmarks, transportation.
A reimbursement.
Our reimbursement. Partial reimbursements of those.
Transportation, right, yeah. Private facility reimbursement.
Right. Yeah, well, it's not, that stuff's not, I mean, that stuff's substantial. It's still, the community is still carrying the load.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion items? Board member, or any other comments?
One other one, and maybe it gets lost, but a lot of what school districts are is really a service entity, instead of producing a product per se. When you're in a manufacturing business, you can control your manufacturing costs. When you're in a labor service industry, you're governed by what those labor costs are. And so I think it's a different model in that sense as well. I don't know what the percentage is, but I'd probably say it's a good 80% of the budget is actually based on labor costs. And so we have to go and negotiate that accordingly. And it's just, this is what the model is. This is the service that we provide. And when it comes time to bargain collectively, there isn't a swell from the community that says that our teachers deserve better and we want to retain the teachers. It was part of the message in the strategic planning discussions about teacher retention. Well, teacher retention is directly linked to how much you pay them so that they stay instead of moving eastward like what Mr. Gentry alluded to, and going to higher paying districts that go eastward. So I agree, we do a good job trying to be as efficient as we can with what we have. These are the resources we're presented, and this is what we have to work with.
All right. Any further, anyone on the board, then I'll make a motion to approve the property tax levy as presented. The agenda. I have a second. Second from Mr. Gentry. May I roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Is approved. Okay, we have our item that we removed from consent, which is the graduation event location agreement.
Yes, I would like to start this discussion off with just a statement for clarity. I'd like to address some individual concerns we received from families at Huntley High School and community members regarding our proposal to move the 2022 graduation ceremony to the Willow Creek Auditorium in South Barrington. Several of these concerns were shared by our community and the board tonight. First of all, I want to emphasize that our administration and board members acknowledge the community's function or input on this subject, and we certainly take all perspectives into consideration. The function of bringing this decision to the board serves to involve our parents and the community in a public process in order to do what is best in their best interest. I want to reiterate that our top priority remains our students. We in no way want any student to feel marginalized by our district's choices. Though we know not every stakeholder is in agreement, the dialogue we are engaging in is important. Our goal, as always, is to ensure that our decisions reflect what is right for our students. Perhaps even more importantly, I want to clarify that this proposal and the eventual choice of where to hold our graduation is strictly about finding a venue that makes the most sense for our students and their families. Graduation is a special event for not just our students, but for their entire family to share in and celebrate the achievement of an academic career in Huntley 158. Whether our ceremony is held at NIU, Willow Creek, the Sears Center, or small installments on the HHS football field like last year, the purpose of our graduation ceremony has not and will not change. Our sole intention is to provide our families with the best possible venue at which to celebrate the tremendous accomplishment from graduating from our high school. Our motivation to investigate other venue options comes from years of parent feedback. Over the years of hosting graduation at off-campus venues, families have consistently voiced their desire to find a location closer to home, to accommodate an afternoon ceremony, and to avoid the logistical challenges of traveling to DeKalb for a 7:30 p.m. ceremony, all while finding a financially responsible option. We also heard after last year's altered structure due to COVID-19 how important it was for our graduating class to be together during one ceremony if possible. In light of the challenges our students and parents have faced these past 2 years, we recognize more than ever the need to ensure the graduation is held in an environment that does our students justice. In order to address this feedback and improve the experience of our families, we sought out a new venue that would elevate our commencement and truly make it one to remember. Willow Creek's facilities do provide what we were looking for to offer our families. Its auditorium is fully equipped and to comfortably and safely hold 8 guests for each graduate, has necessary technology to facilitate our ceremony and the live stream, and sits on a beautiful grounds for photos and lasting memories. In addition, it's closer to home and offers the chance to host an afternoon ceremony. Certainly, we are aware that the venue's status as a non-denominational community church means it's hosted religious events. However, this will have no bearing on our ceremony or our graduates' experiences. While we understand the range of perspective shared here tonight, our intention, just as other high schools have done at this location since 1995, is to focus our ceremony solely on Huntley High School and the accomplishments of our Red Raider family. No religious insignia is present inside the venue, nor will any religious materials factor into the day's events. May 21st, 2022 will be entirely dedicated to the pride and togetherness we associate with our Huntley 158 graduation. All of that being said, we are prepared to make a decision that best serves the students and families, and we respect the many views around this transition. Whatever the consensus is among our board members, I want to reassure our families and community that we will work to make this graduation great. The decision of where to hold our ceremony is only a first step. Our job as administrators continues after tonight as we progress towards May to plan an inclusive and beautiful celebration for our students. We have the ability to harness the pride and individuality that is present within Huntley High School to make the ceremony as memorable as possible, no matter the venue. I know from firsthand experience that Red Raider pride travels well. So tonight, I want to remind both our community and our Board of Education that we are all on the same side. No matter your perspective or background, we are all working towards the best possible outcome. Regardless of where we will celebrate our graduates come May 2022, I can promise you that we will continue to work together to commemorate our students' time in Huntley 158 the best way possible. I appreciate all of the voices that were shared on this topic. And now pass it back to you, and thank you for that time.
Thoughts? I guess just a quick question, and probably something I just want to get your feelings on, is that notion of having the class gathered together in one ceremony. Because I know there's a lot of neat things about last year, being right here on our facility, but what was the dialogue and feedback you heard on that particular need? And was it, too strong a word, but cheapened in any way by the fact that it was divided in three?
I don't believe it was cheapened, but I asked Dr. Beelan to come and share because he received the feedback directly.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, good evening. In terms of price, it was our most costly event, to the tune of close to $45,000. That included bringing a stage from Central Illinois, the production company, the cost of their workers, and the cost of us paying for. We did everything a la carte. And I mean, a lot of what we did too was, in terms of our ticketing system, things of that nature, it was all done in-house and built specifically for that event. The challenges also of managing that are outside, so weather, and then, just the maintenance and care of our football field by driving trucks and chairs and all of that stuff. So, I mean, we were fortunate to come away a little bit unscathed, minus some tears to our track, which we were able to repair. But, I mean, that all factors into it. The feedback, though, parents enjoyed it, students enjoyed it. We made the best out of the situation of what we were able to do. We didn't have a venue large enough that was able to hold us. And so we put our heads together. We talked with students. And in any of my processes, student voice is most important to me first and foremost. And so the feedback from that was also, or the feedback to even get to that point was also based off of students' response to wanting to do something and coming together in the venue in which we have, which was at our stadium.
So you asked about one
directly about
venue
having,
and one ceremony,
but
just some of the statistics of what our stadium can support. When Mr. Enkostik and I back, 2013, went on visits and selected the bleachers that held 2,000 people, according to the manual. Whether that 2,000 people actually fit in there remains to be seen. And then there were some on the ground. So I'm guesstimating roughly and probably very liberally that maybe 3,000 guests could fit in there at one time. With 837 graduates this year. So, one ceremony is not logical, which was one of the requests that some of our students wanted to be together as a class as a whole. Now, of course, COVID protocols, what we can do, will dictate a lot of that, but
that was the question I was really getting at, is that feeling, that students experience feeling about how important was it to have one ceremony, and how detrimental, just on a sheer emotional level, was it to have three separate ones?
Yeah, no, our kids want to be together. I mean, I think the biggest challenge of when we did the 3 ceremonies was the moment that link went live, 2 p.m. ceremony filled up, then it was a 10 a.m., then it was a 6, and now it's like, how do we move? If we give our take, it was crazy. No one should have to go through that for a celebration of 13 years of, no one should have to go through that. We shouldn't have to plan it, and parents shouldn't have to do that, and we shouldn't have to figure out how to make this work. So kids want to be together.
In terms of scale, even if we did 2 ceremonies, it would limit the number of tickets that students would be able to give each of their family members, which is something that should be taken into consideration. Sure. The high school, certainly it can be done, but it comes at a cost, and then the decision of how many guests can you bring. And having lived through that, it's not a fun experience of you only get this many tickets to a really special event.
Right.
I could ask a question on it again, because I've never physically been inside Willow Creek. So, I mean, I get how the parents, where are the students set up for graduation? Is there a big open area where there's 837 students? I know it's gonna it would work if we used it, for the spectators, we'll call them, but the participants, how do they fit into this place?
So there's multiple levels, there's balcony levels in which all of our guests will fill in, as well as our main floor where our students will be seated, kind of down front near, towards the stage, near the middle, the large middle section. And we have not gone logistically down that road to determine how it works. We know Barrington has done it, and depending on the outcome of this, it'd be reaching out to say, hey, what are the details, so that our team can begin to plan, what that looks like.
But given the visual of what you may remember,
Right,
if you remember the belly of the Sears Center and how students lined up around in the lower level, it's something very similar to that.
Right, you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
I'd prefer to allow you guys to state what your thoughts are on wise.
Start at the other end.
Yeah, Mr. Craddy, you're gonna have to pitch in.
All right, so, last week I was, I think both options are good. I like the idea of Willow Creek. I think it offers the technology, the space. But what it really comes down for me is the kids. And so I took time this week out of my day to reach out to about 20 students who are graduating. And that's what I heard. I heard they want to be together. They want everybody there. And for me, if one kid does not feel comfortable going there, that's one kid too many. So I wanted to make sure that I talked to those that this ceremony is for. And if that limits tickets a little bit, it is a little bit, going out to NIU at 7:30 at night, it's not as attractive. I don't think you can celebrate afterwards, but there will be other times to celebrate, I'm sure. So that's where I'm at now.
I guess, after hearing about it last week, I was kind of in a similar boat as Mr. Craddy in terms of, logistically, we're limited to the number of places that we can actually hold this thing. But then after, reading the emails that we got over the last couple of weeks, and I apologize for my ignorance about not knowing some of the things that are perceived or go on at this place. I had no idea, and I'm completely not in support of it based on what I've heard, what I've learned, what I've read since then. So I would definitely be voting no.
This way, huh? I guess first a clarifying question is what I think of venues that would work for one place, one location. It would be NIU, whatever they call the Sears Center today. Now. That's why they're very prompt, it's now. And Willow Creek. So are those three venues equal options or from an availability standpoint this year or not, or do we know that?
The Now Center has not been something that we've investigated. When we left the Now Center several years ago, it was, I want to say it was a $28,000 commitment for the day. We had some interesting experiences there in terms of how quickly they expected us to leave.
I recall.
If you remember one rainy graduation day when our students were literally being shoved out the door to be out in the rain. It left a sour taste there. That was many, many years ago, and it's changed names twice, I think. So it could be a totally different experience, but we had not investigated that because of the cost and where we were back then. The reason why Willow Creek was on the table was the cost is comparable, and the location. And then just to reiterate, we were unaware of I'm not aware of Willow Creek's specifics and inner workings of who they have been and who they are and how they're perceived to be either. This was solely about, convenience, and, or not convenience, but enhancing the experience for our families. So, so anyway, but to answer your question, we can investigate the Now Arena to see where they are currently. It just hasn't been done because of conversations from years ago of how expensive it was.
Sure.
District 300 uses the Now Arena. They also have 3 graduations in the same day. So there's a little bit more of like bang for your buck, and because it's the same cost that we would expend for one ceremony.
Right. No, and I have firsthand memorable knowledge of the Sears Center experience back then, so that was, yeah. Leave that alone, I guess I recall. It was not good, to the point of physical contact with a graduate between employees, so that was not good. So I guess I too I looked from our discussion last meeting and, thought it did make a lot of sense. And I also read, a lot of the correspondence and, learned a few things. And I don't want to disrespect the church or the members of the church, but I can definitely see the conflict. And, I go back to what these two, had said earlier is, what is that feeling, what is that emotion of the student crossing the stage, getting their diploma? What is the feeling of the family there watching them? And if that feeling or experience is tainted in any real and tangible way, I don't think it's worth having it there. And I think, this is an entirely discretionary decision as far as where to have graduation. I mean, there's all the topics we dealt with over the past year, there's all sorts of regulatory, health department, education, all those things kind of pulling in different directions, and, we're not able to do exactly what we would like to do in all cases. But this is a discrete, discretionary decision that, if we do alienate a population, it's probably not worth going that route. So that's where I'm at.
You're skipping? Okay. So, 2 weeks ago when we had the presentation, from a, for lack of better words, a sales pitch, was nice. It was compelling. It seemed, hey, this is great. I will admit that I did not know this Willow Creek stance on our LGBTQ community. And since learning about it, it has changed my mind. I almost was, as I started to research, I was almost an immediate no. And this goes back over a week ago. And maybe I have a little bit closer connection because I have a senior who's graduating, and so I do know multiple families and multiple students. So maybe some of the feedback started coming to me a little bit sooner. And I appreciate all of the parents and the members of the community who sent in emails and have advocated for our students. But for me, when students were reaching out to me and expressing how they were feeling and would feel, and were afraid they would have to miss their graduation, that broke my heart. Like Sean said, one student is too many, and we cannot say all students always if that one student doesn't matter in this case. And so I am a hard no on this. I think we need to find someplace else. I mean, the graduation was really nice last year. I was, like, well, this might be kind of cool to watch my son graduate outside of the high school, but I understand logistically and how much work that was and a long day. And I know the Now Center is probably a lot more expensive, but I think we need to look at options, either NIU. I can look myself in the mirror
and know that I may have disappointed some families with a drive to NIU. And I'd love to be able to go out, afterwards and celebrate with my son, and I'm okay with that disappointment, but I'm not okay with making any student feel unwelcome or ashamed or just having that anxiety about being in that facility. I just can't do that. It was once the students reached out to me, I couldn't. So I would have to be a no on that.
I'm glad you all said what's been on my mind. So I'll take a little bit different tack instead of repeating comments of my colleagues. What this entire discussion, sorry, Dr. Beelen, to keep you standing for so long. No, please, rest your legs. What this discussion has showed me is that our process works. The presentation was made. We've been able to take 2 weeks or a week to process, seek out information on our own, talk to other people, read some of the information that's being conveyed to us, expressed by our community, and reformulate an opinion. And so for that, I'm glad that we've been able to have this kind of discussion or hear this kind of engagement from our community in such a constructive, in my opinion, and adult manner. And so I thank the people for their emails and conversation. It's been a pleasure to dialogue with the people in emails. And again, I'm glad that this process worked and allowed us to go through this information and set this before having a vote.
I'm going to take a completely different tack than all of you, because I'm not in agreement with probably any of you. Okay, I have one focus. This is a graduation venue. Okay, my thought and my focus is providing the best experience for our kids and our parents. Okay, and given these two choices, and taking out it's a venue. Okay, people want to make it into something more than it is. It's a physical building that we can hold the graduation in. If you want to make it more than that, you're fine. You're welcome to do it. But that's not what this graduation is about. You can make it about whatever you want politically, if you want, or whatever your case is. But I'm in the corner of 7:30 at the Cal on a Saturday night is not the best graduation experience for our kids and our family. A place like Willow Creek has a facility that you can do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can do stuff afterwards. You got places to go all over the place. It's convenient. I think you're taking away the best possible graduation experience that you can from our students, and I'm a little disappointed in the sense that, we had a dozen emails. Some of them are from a specific group, okay, that are just the same email. So I know there's a bunch of stuff out there on social media. I think many of you are caving into a small group of people who, I don't want to, we're not marginalizing anybody. We're trying to pick a location that suits us best for our kids and our families. And I think you're going to short-sight them with that type of decision, quite frankly. Again, I have no skin in the game. I don't go to Willow Creek. I don't go to any church right now, okay? I'm concerned about where the graduation is. I was just at the Cal for my oldest son's graduation on Saturday. It was at 2 o'clock, and if this was at 2 o'clock in DeKalb, I'd be okay. It's not a problem. 7:30 at night, getting done at 9, getting home at 10. Is that what you guys, is that the best experience we can give them if we have choices? So that's where I'm at. I think it's short-sighted, and again, I'm not an advocate for or against Willow Creek. But I'm going to point out something, and I don't think the community is all in tune to this, and I'll point out, Willow Creek's rented from our school district for 10 years. They provided us probably close to $800,000 of rentals over those 10 years. Okay, I don't know if everybody had such a hard time with Willow Creek, where everybody was at when we were renting our buildings to that group. I mean, they've been a community partner, this isn't a church-state type of thing. This is a resource in the community that we also utilize for other purposes, potentially, for emergency purposes, that we have an agreement with. So people want to demonize and, say bad things about everybody. I'm more focused on what's the positive about what can be had out of this, and I think the positive of utilizing that facility and venue outweighs the negativity that's been brought out, and like our first speaker said, the nastiness that's brought out. I think people lose sight of their ability to talk with each other, understand each other a little bit more, and some people who think they're extremely open-minded are a bit closed-minded at times, and it goes on both sides of the ledger in this respect. So I think you gotta be a little bit more open-minded about things and not so closed-minded that you pigeonhole a group of people on either side in that respect. So I'm going to be a yes on this. I will. Ms. Melendi is not here. I'll just, for the record, I mean, she doesn't get a formal vote, but she was definitely a no on this. So everybody.
I guess I would just, and I respect that opinion. I think the one distinction that I would draw, though, is it's not a condemnation on the face of Willow Creek. It's not a condemnation of any people there. It's the feeling that what I just heard up here today is that there is feeling at the student level that they wouldn't feel right about it. So it's not the politics of it, it's not the hoopla, it's not the social media commentary, which, is its own thing. It's really what's my best evidence for how that student and how their family can feel. And I think, to me, of all that noise out there, there is some evidence that would say that some student and some family in that ceremony would not feel 100% right there. And I think it's not something that, if we have limited control over it, fine, we can go through it, but this is an entirely discretionary decision in my mind.
Yeah.
And if we can take that away from, if it's truly there at the student and family level, not anyone else, then I think it's worth stepping away from.
I mean, I respect all of it.
And yeah, I respect your thoughts and opinions too, but I just want to throw out there, you guys know my oldest son, Michael, and he's gay.
Yeah.
And I asked him his opinion, and he did know more about Willow Creek than I did, and he said, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go to my graduation ceremony if he was graduating. So I was like, oh, okay. And then his mom said she wouldn't go either, and I said, well, I'm not even going to ask her, but he said it directly to me that he wouldn't go. So, I mean, it's a real thing for people who are, yeah. Yep. So.
If I could add one thing, and Tony, I respect your position, but, and this is more maybe for Dr. Rowe and Dr. Beelan. The students, one student in particular that I was having a conversation with, made a point that made me think and wonder, how can we communicate this? They stated, we as students don't really know how to get our voices heard to you, to the board. And I want to maybe make sure that they know our emails and that we are here and we are able to listen to them as well. They just feel like they didn't know how to share how they were feeling. And I think it's important for them, as they, they're growing and advocating for themselves and becoming young adults, to know how to communicate and that we are here. So just if we could just take note of that.
So, Dr. Beeline, can you come up for a second? So what's your perception of, so this is out the last couple of weeks. I mean, what's the buzz been in the building about it?
So, interesting, just like I told you, I value students, I'm a student's principal, right? Like, the kids know that door is open, I have a 100% track record of meeting with students who have reached out, whether it be email, whether it be, stopping by the office, and my secretary knows, like, when they get on, find some time on the calendar, I'm to find some time, right? I actually had to go out and approach a couple of students and say, hey, look, like, this is what's happening at the board meeting, do you know about it? They knew, right? And a couple of students voiced some concerns and just had some thoughts. I reached out to them, like, hey, like, give me your perspective on this. I did it again today because I knew we were coming, but, like, and I don't know if it's the focus of finals or if it's the focus of, like, and I may not know or not have a voice, Principals Leadership Council, you know, reaching out to students intentionally, like I have a Principals Leadership Council and they know how to get a hold of me. Typically when we have things that happen in the building, or that impacts our school, I get feedback from kids, right? Like all of the challenges we've had this semester, man, the feedback has been open, it's been going. We got groups of students who are working, you know, to figure things out. So I know that the voice is there. It did not come to my office. I actually had to go out and find that voice. And so I know there's parents listening and there's students listening, and I challenge them all the time. I'm never going to suppress that from them and give them the ability to talk about it and ask questions. And if they need to know how to get to you, like, hey, come to the board meeting, show up right here. And I have no problem in them doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Beeline. I appreciate that. I do.
Absolutely.
All right, anybody have anything further to say on the matter?
Yeah, I do. Just clarification on your answer, I may have, missed it, but I kind of understood the question to be in a way is, or maybe I heard your answer was, you know, as far as the feedback, of negative feedback or positive feedback, it just wasn't there at all.
No, and like I said, parents will be the first to reach out to me. I'm very accessible, and I didn't get any other than what you all received that I was copied on. You know, and my response was that I just do the duty of gathering the information and giving it to Dr. Rose as requested, and then.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well then, I don't know if we'll get a second, but, I will make a motion. We'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Willow Creek to host Huntley High School's graduation ceremony. Is there a second? Once? Twice? There being no second, the motion is defeated. Item 25, which is adjournment. Make a motion to adjourn our meeting at 9:09. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Gentry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, opposed? Meeting is adjourned.